believe we should keep this intro. I think it's ace. Ladies and gentlemen, best intro ever.
Motherfuckers! Welcome to the goddamn Fluffenhammer. What fresh hell have I done? What did I create to do that? What gods did I anger? What gods of technology did I go round and piss on?
Well, you know, Adam, you do realise before you do anything with the Fluffenhammer, or any podcast for that matter, you need to conduct some sort of ninefold ritual.
I think I need to grab some kind of fluffy creature, bring it into the studio, slaughter it, let its blood flow down rivulets that I have put into the floor, into some giant 8-pointed star that I've carved using nothing but my own fingernails for 17 years. In order to get
fluffy animals.
9 fluffy...
You need 9 fluffy animals to make it work.
9 fluffy animals, and I'm going to use rain accords. 9 fluffy animals, stabbing them with a knife. God fucking damn it, like... I get the feeling...
This will not be a PG-13 show.
I get the feeling that somewhere...
It will not. Welcome to the Fluffenhammer, by the way, ladies and gents.
Somewhere Gav Thorpe is laughing at me.
I like the way you've abstracted Gav Thorpe as though he's sort of like a, I don't know, like some sort of deity of bad luck or something.
He's definitely a demon. He's definitely a demon. Let's not confuse it with deity. that is pure hellspawn right there.
Welcome to the fucking Fluffenhammer.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, this is going to be a fun one.
Oh, I'm wired now. I am geared up. Motherfucker. Right.
You're doing your sort of Bill O'Reilly thing.
Oh, I'm going
You're sort of like, oh, let's fucking do it. Let's just do it live.
Oh, let's just do it live. Oh, I'm thinking I'm turning more into, what's his face, you know, turn the frickin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? Turn the frickin' frogs gay. Alan, no, not Alan.
And I do believe what you're hearing now, ladies and gentlemen, is a full-blown nervous breakdown on air.
I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to sit here, start chewing on Reaper Bones miniatures.
If any of you are political believing people, Alex Jones actually listens to the Fluffenhammer just to get some of his inspiration for his American talk shows.
Yeah, in his last memoirs, in his deathbed confessions, I get it all from Fluffenhammer. And the Creeks, obviously.
Right. Okay. Calm. Relaxed. Ready to go. So, hello everybody, I'm Adam, sometimes known as Gruffy, and with me as always is George. Hello, George.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I feel just a little bit more sanguine than Gruffy is over there.
And of course, for the 4th week in a row, we've finally got a recording going with Chris.
Hello, everybody. Morning.
I get the feeling, as Adam laughs maniacally in the background there, that Chris is going to bring a sort of levelling element to this show. I think he's going to be sort of like the anaesthetic or the sedative that brings Adam down a little bit.
That's actually just me stood 2 foot from a PC going, please do not break in case I accidentally kill Gruff, and that's the end of the Fluffenhammer.
Oh, no. I would just be going out on some kind of mass murder rampage, I think.
Yes, we will be conducting the Fluffenhammer from Broadmoor after this, I'm afraid.
I hear the internet signal's pretty good down there, so we should be absolutely fine.
Yeah, we'll be alright. And of course you'll have plenty of time.
That's true, yeah. I don't think I'm allowed to have tiny, sharp plastic miniatures in Broadmoor.
No, and especially like given what would have inspired your rampage, I don't think they probably would let you near the internet.
No. So
Probably not.
So couldn't we ask you, Adam, what name did Chris just vanish?
No, you just called him Adam.
That's okay. So Adam, what brought you here? Do not call me Adam. I am Slanesh, the changer of ways. I think you've got two different gods mixed up there. Silence! Blood for the blood god!
Wow, that's for me on like so many different levels.
Oh, I would go full blown.
I'm sure
Chaos
both
Undivided.
Siege and Slanesh are going to be happy about that.
Yeah, Grufflock the Ever-Chosen there sat in his cell.
Shortest ever lived, ever chosen.
Yeah, with a teeny tiny book under his bed with Malal written on. And it's just because, we can't forget him. We just can't forget him, people.
No, nobody
Don't
can
let him
forget
sink
Malal.
into them for me.
I'm just throwing like bags of rat poo at
Nobody
people.
can forget Malal.
I've got both rats and poo at once. I'm all the gods at once.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is just in case you're confused. This is a podcast about Games Workshop and Warhammer and stuff like that.
Yes, it's just been a long road.
Just to establish that.
It has been a very long road to get to this episode, and it looked for a moment like it was all going to go wrong again. So, what is the Fluffenhammer? For those of you who have just joined us, the Fluffenhammer is me screaming incoherently at a wall. For an audience's pleasure. So the Fluffenhammer is a look at people's journeys through Games Workshop, the worlds of Games Workshop, the fiction of Games Workshop, the fluff, the background, and the releases. What we like to do at the Fluffenhammer, though, is we don't want to be sitting around and talking about what's come out that month, what we're going to buy, what we're going to slowly but surely spend all of our money on. We want to know about the stories, whether they be the person stories or whether they be the tales of the worlds of Warhammer, Age of Sigmar, and 40k themselves. We're kind of like that. We're a little bit pretentious, but that's okay, because you've just heard me scream incoherently for 10 minutes. I think it evens out now. So
Absolutely. Now we can get into the sort of more sophisticated stuff, the highbrow stuff.
yes, I'll just sit here with my bubble pipe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Smoking jackets at dawn.
best duel ever. So, with that being said, how are you doing, George?
I'm doing really well, thanks, Adam, man. Much better than you, it seems, at the moment. Much better than you. I was reading before I came on here. I was just flicking through my Thousand Sons Codex and just thinking to myself, you know what? I can't believe I'm in a place where this hobby is sustaining me so much at the moment. I can't believe that in context with recent years that I'm in a place where I am so happy with the stuff that's coming out. I've got a big box of Goat Boys on my table right here, my lovely Zarngor, and I'm ecstatic.
Did it come from Thailand?
No.
I just wanted to check, just to clarify.
Interesting. That would be a very interesting sort of theme to model them by, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, they have to be Zangadors. Absolutely.
I don't think I would get into many of the more official tournaments or anything like that if I went down that route, even if it were a Slanesh army.
You never know. I once went to a grand tournament where I did actually see a Slaneshi tank where the wielder of said tank had carved all the doors to make it look like the tank was giving birth to said Marines as it came out, which would have been completely innocent, and his sculpting was pretty good until he decided to use static grass as your minds can go to the rest.
Wow.
Which did unfortunately result in the tank being taken off the table.
Yes, I can imagine. I can well imagine. There are ways of suggesting these orifices without going the whole hog, as it were.
Yeah. I do like the fact that Chris's mind went to Thailand. My mind went to Bill Hicks. So I know the image I've got now is that you're running a Zench army that is just going to have Goat Boy.
That would be even worse.
Yeah. Oh, Goat Boy,
That
you
would
hairy, shaggy thing.
Yeah.
I actually can't
That would
hear the
make me
name.
rather retard, wouldn't it?
It would be horrible.
You have them rampaging throughout the enemy ranks, doing unspeakable things to the Astra-Militarium soldiers and whatnot. I can't know. I think, again, not even for a Slash army.
I think I know what's going on at the end of this episode. Goat boy!
Bill Hickson. I'm going to wear you like a feed bag.
What does the magic wand do, Goat boy? It makes a bell ring in your stomach.
In all seriousness, I love the Goat Boys. I'm a big fan of the Goat Boys. I'd have an army of damn things. I think they're brilliant, and now I can.
Yeah, and they are brilliant. They're one of my favourite molds that Games Workshop's come out with. The sheer amount of character that those things have got. I mean, the idea I've got, cause the problem I've got is that my Zench army, it goes through ideas like a fire burning through an orphanage. It just doesn't stop. There is just hundreds of things just crackling away at any given time. I mean,
sorry, Adam. Just let me get my notebook out. Inappropriate simile number 8,762.
63.
63. Sorry. Yeah. Fire burning through orphanage.
And it's ridiculous because my original idea was to have the people, like the acolytes, being turned into the Zangors. But now I've started thinking, actually, do you know what would be really cool? If the Zangors were being slowly turned into something else.
Oh, God, so you've basically gone from one state of mutation to something even worse.
Yeah, so
or better, depending on your perspective.
So the acolytes are being turned into the Zangors, and then the Zangors are being split into two. Some of the Zangors are using the Sylvaneth limbs, so they're slowly becoming much more nature-ish. The sort of branches and stuff coming out of them, all these spikes. And then another set is being slowly turned into diamond. I
like that.
Because
that is very nice.
The Changer of Ways needs to have fresh material to keep building his silver towers. So I quite
so like the crystal labyrinth of Zeech, yeah.
Exactly. So I quite like the idea that the Zangors who aren't in his favour are slowly being turned into building material.
That's really cool. I mean, like from a modelling perspective, you could actually have like some of the Zangor having these shards erupting from their eyes or from their heads and their backs. And from a painting perspective, it's a real challenge.
It is. So that's going to send me round the bend.
Yeah. This is the problem with Zeech, though, isn't it? This is the problem with Zeech armies. You can do so much, and they cry out for it. They actually cry out for players to not just to assemble the miniatures out of the box, but to do something a little bit weird and a little bit wacky with them to make them distinct. The themes you can come up with are insane.
They are,
because they are literally infinite.
Yeah, you can do anything you want.
Literally infinite.
The entire idea, of course, is that everything changes for the Changer of Ways. So why not bring that to the table? Why not make everything, without going down the usual idea of just tentacles and extra heads and everything? Because that's not really Zench. That's not, it's not the extra arms, extra limbs, lots of things. Everything I want to have being mutable towards the subject, if that makes sense. So it's each miniature I'm going to put onto the table for my Zench army, I want to have each one of them in their own personal journey.
Yep.
Because I'm fucking insane, apparently, and...
Yeah, I totally understand. I mean, I'm doing exactly the same thing with my Thousand Sons force, exactly the
Well, it's your fault that this
same thing, and as a result, it's taking forever. Yeah.
It's entirely your fault, George.
Doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me in the least. It does tend to happen.
From a miniature perspective as well, for me, it's the first time in a long time we've seen really sexy infantry beastmen figures.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because if you look back historically, beastmen have never been a very well represented plastic range in Games Workshop.
Yeah.
They've always had the odd, very cool figures, and back at the tail end of 5th, 6th edition, when they changed the codex, they ever so slightly started to dip their toe into having really sexy beastmen with the Cygors and the new big chunky Minotaurs when they hit. And I think that's obviously laid the ground for a lot of it. But now that you actually see infantry figures coming out that look absolutely stunning, can't pass up that opportunity to get some modelling done.
I'm well in. I'm well in. I mean, I don't know whether they're just going to keep the Zarngors for like a Zeech theme, or whether they're going to introduce them for other Chaos forces, like the Pestigor for Nurgle, or the Slangor for Slaanesh.
Yeah, I love the theme of the Pestigor and the Korngor back when they could be god-specific, and I really hope they continue to do that, especially with the way they've been churning out gorgeous Nurgle miniatures recently.
Yeah. Oh my god, I mean, the Maggot kin of Nurgle.
Oh yeah, they're amazing.
I got that quite recently. It's a great book. I mean, it's absolutely... All of the god-specific books for AOS have been stunning. The Disciples of Zeech, the Khorne one, whose name, the Blades of Khorne, I think it's called, and the Maggot-kin of Nurgle, absolutely stunning. And I tell you what, they go for the gusto with the Nurgle one. The vivid descriptions of what these guys do to themselves and to their enemies are gross.
Oh yeah.
They are vomit-inducingly brilliant.
It's also pretty in the worst way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Chris,
it's just...
I'm sorry, man. What about you? How are you doing, and what have you been up to?
I have been continuing my tirade into the Underhive on Necromunda, I'm afraid. I am still absolutely salivating at the new edition of Necromunda. I cannot stop touching it. And I have this week...
You'll go blind!
Flesh mop.
I'd like to know, I'm actually sat in the room touching my box of Necromunda right now.
Worst euphemism ever.
My hands are on the goods, let me tell you that, people.
Are you touching your Goliath?
I am actually touching a dirty little cultist. Oh yeah. He has a massive barreled weapon pointed right at me. I'll put a picture up in the Fluffenhammer later to show. I've actually this week been working on a cultist gang.
Add into Slaanesh territory it goes.
Actually, I have just looked quite closely at the miniature's face, and it's probably quite close to an old face, so yeah, that's definitely fluff later on.
Oh god.
Text, ladies.
Yeah, so currently I've been working on my fourth Necromunda gang this week. I started with the Goliaths. My good fiancée has been working on her Escher, and I've been helping her paint them.
That's cool.
I got some lovely bounty hunters the week before, but this week I've been focused on doing a Chaos Cultist gang, which was probably going to make a sneak appearance around about June, we hope. Rumours aside, obviously Genestealer cults are next. Oh, we will get onto them. But yeah, absolutely loving working on that. Moment. I have invested quite a lot of money as well in some resin terrain for the new boards of it, because I love Necromunda, don't get me wrong, for all the people who think the board systems are horrendous. I have friends as well who are really quite saddened that Necromunda is now played on a board. I have to tell you, before anyone judges it, gosh, play it on a board. Yeah. It is fantastic. The setup time is amazing. There's no faffing around with line of sight, because the new rules are actually beautifully written, and the miniatures, which is what we're all here for at the end of the day, isn't it? The miniatures are absolutely stunning. Yeah. And it's amazing how Chaos Cultists that have just they've just been in the background as a box filler for the core sets, or like a little low pointed unit for your Chaos army, are suddenly absolutely characterful miniatures that mean everything to a small gang. So yeah, that's currently where my singular pointed barrel gun is facing.
Oh, superb. And it's really nice to hear people are enjoying Necromunda, I have to say, because it had a slightly shaky start, didn't it?
It did. I think just the massive change again. It was very Age of Sigmar related. You know, they took something people loved, and it has still run strong. I mean, obviously, Games Workshop canned its specialist games program many years back now. There's no need to open that dark vault, but they've since kicked doors open, and everything's just come crashing out like all of the water from the first Jumanji film that was trapped in that house. And
it is a little bit like being buried underneath specialist games, like tsunamis of boxes of wonderfulness, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the sheer value, like, I haven't even stuck my Orlok gang together currently. There it is, sat rattling in the box right now, just because every time I touch these sprues, I think, fuck's sake, there's like 1,000 beautiful pieces on here. I'm admiring hands, people. Sheer singular hands with guns in them. I was sat staring at them for 5-10 minutes going, oh, that is beautiful. That is fantastic. We've actually started on a Monday night doing a Necromunda campaign with a few friends. He actually wrote up a Necromunda gang on a Monday. He just took some random things and then thought, you know what? I actually love the miniatures. It doesn't work as a gang. It's not going to play very well, but god damn, my gang will look sexual.
I am
much like my current Goliath gang. I have went way over the top on heavy weapons because obviously they have made massive changes to the way you can arm your troopers now. It's not so restrictive. It's very free flowing. Sorry. So all of a sudden you can have this little piped up Juve who might do really, really well in a game, and then in 2 games' time he's wielding a grenade launcher pointing it at your face. I can certainly tell you it won't be Boom Boom. Boom Boom has had 2 games so far as my only Juve. One, he kicked down a door, threw a grenade at an Escher, it bounced off her head and landed back on his face, exploding and taking him out of action. And the second one, he ran up point blank to another gang member, swung his axe at him, completely missed, and then got cut in half by a renderizer. So he's currently in a synth vat somewhere in the Water Guild getting repaired. But yeah, that's what I'd better stop, however, because I could probably talk about Necromunda for the entire time we're on this.
That is superb. I'm so pleased, and I love the fact that you can have these little narrative moments.
That's what Necromunda.
I mean, that's definitely what it's all about. I am one of these gamers who will do something that's probably tactically unsound but makes narrative sense because it's fun.
Absolutely. I mean, my guys have more heavy weapons than is ever feasibly possible for a Goliath gang to have, but I don't care. I absolutely love it, and I want big, roided up muscle freaks running about Necromunda. They're all armed with rivet guns, so essentially they're just meant to fire bolts in and fix the hive, but god damn it, set my enemies ablaze with them.
When I finally get round to getting Necromunda, my Goliath are all going to have little face masks sculpted onto them, and like very fluffy leather jackets, because I've decided that my entire Goliath needs to be Dark Knight Returns Banes. So I'm just. Are
you going to do the voice?
Oh yes, yeah.
If you're going to play them like that, every single time anything happens, you've got to say a line from the film in the Bane voice.
I'll just do the Bane rap. So every time they do anything, I'm Bane, yes, that's my name. I'll say the name Bane, I guarantee the pain. I'm coming after you, Bruce Wayne. I'm stronger, smarter, clinically insane. It's going to be a wonderful experience.
I actually...
Yeah, I can imagine.
If you're coming up to play Necromunda with us, I actually have a full latex Bane mask in the cupboard, and I insist that you are not allowed to play until you put that Bane mask on. I will, however, allow you regular intervals to get actual oxygen in, because it is one stifling mask.
It's alright, Chris. I'll bring mine.
Oh, God.
You have to remove those extra appendages on the front. They are not 40k sanctioned.
My name is Bane. I'm the Artilleris Monstronica. Myself, I have been doing a bit of hobbying, which is, shall we say, a little bit older than anything that anyone else has talked about. I have been working my way through a holy grail of mine. Something that I have been waited for. I've waited to try and get hold of for years and years and years. And thanks to Chris here, I managed to get hold of it for an amazing deal. Ladies and gentlemen, I have spent the last 2 weeks painting everything that I could get hold of for Talisman 3rd edition.
Bloody hell. Wow, that's a blast from the past.
Gorgeous artwork. Gorgeous.
Wayne England at his finest. It is just beautiful. Oh my god. The thing is, right, I've got, is it 5th edition that Fantasy Flight did? Or is that 4th? Fifth, yeah. I can never remember.
There was a brief blip where they did a 4th edition that had pretty much the same internal components but with cardboard structures.
Yes.
And then they did a 5th with plastic miniatures, which was absolutely appreciated by all of us.
Yeah. So me and Abby have played it multiple times, and she really likes Talisman. She really enjoys it, but I introduced the 3rd, and she was like, yeah, but it's just the same game, isn't it? And then we played it, and she went, this is so much better. It's faster, there's more stuff happening, there's just tons and tons of things. And I think the thing that she really loves about it is it's bright and colourful, and just there's a little bit of silliness to it as well that isn't in the Fantasy Flight version.
Absolutely. It's got that lovely, charming, retro aesthetic to go with gorgeous art. I mean, as you well know, I am dying for you to bring around and have a game. I actually own every single expansion I can physically get for 5th edition.
Yeah.
And we haven't touched them yet, and I'm still more excited to put 3rd edition on the table just to stay with the artwork. I'll get lost in the board and actually lose the game horrifically, but I don't care.
One of the things I'm really looking forward to is that, when I play it with you, is that there are some bits missing. So I need to make a list of what I need to get hold of still. But that's fine, because
Are you going to be a dirty proxy?
No.
Is it going to be
No, this is my ongoing task for the year. I'm going to try and buy up all the bits that I'm missing, plus the expansions, and try and get a complete version of Talisman 3rd edition. Dungeons of Doom came with the version I got, so that's one down. There's, what's the other one? City of Fear, I think it is. And then there's the Dragon's Tower. And I think that's everything for 3rd edition, because I don't think it had a huge amount of expansions.
No,
was the Dragon's Tower the one that actually had like the plastic dragon on the top?
Yes, it was.
Or am I thinking of something?
No.
I thought so. I remember the release of that one.
So I'm going to try and get hold of all the bits. There's stuff missing, like I need to get a barbarian miniature, because there wasn't a barbarian miniature in there, which was a shame, but that's fine. Yeah, there's bits and bobs missing that I need to get hold of. The most annoying part is that the Chaos Dwarf miniature and Chaos Dwarf card aren't in there for Dungeons of Doom. And that... that made me very sad.
That does in fact break my little heart. If nobody knows, I will always forever have a massive Raging Zinch Slanesh Tower of Flesh for Chaos Dwarfs until their dying breath.
Taller than their big tall hats.
Well,
never. You can never have a hat too tall.
Well, Chris, I think you might be quite happy with something that I'm working on.
Have I ever told you the story of John Stallard and the person who sculpted the tall hats?
No.
For Games Workshop?
No.
It was my first year as a manager in Games Workshop, and we went to a managers meeting down in Nottingham, and Ronnie Renton was the head of retail at the time, obviously the now owner and prime face of Mantic Games.
Mm-hmm.
So he was in charge, and John Stallard was Games Workshop's motivational leader at the time was his title. So he would come along to meetings and whatever and motivate the shit out of you. And I mean, the shit was motivated out of you. Standing next to this man for 5 minutes made you walk into Warhammer World and go, "Oh, I'm going to buy everything in this goddamn shop." He was that kind of man, and he also made you think quite deep and hard about yourself. Not in a sexual way, but very deep and hard about what you were doing with your own actions and how you use them effectively, and that's why I loved him. But he told the story for... Ronnie was actually on holiday in Florida at the time of the original Chaos Dwarf sculpts, and Ronnie had a vision of Chaos Dwarfs having big hats, so he asked this chap in Unity Studio, I can't remember his name because my memory's getting shocking, to start sculpting on them, and John would relay the information via Skype. So he's on first week of holiday, and John sends him the sculpts across, and he's like, I can't open it because of the rubbish signal, will you just I tell you what, just tell me what they look like. And he's like, well, the hats are not very big. And he's like, stop there then, I've got visions of them having big hats, let's go big hats. So John went back, big hats. Another week passed, and he's coming back. I don't have time, I'm on my way home. Can you just let me know how they are? Well, the hats are quite big. Well, you've said quite big there, John. I want big hats. I've a vision for big hats, beards. I want kind of like turrets and stuff on them, like really castle sort of thing. So anyway, John goes back and says to the guy, and Ronnie comes in the next week. John brings the final sketches of Chaos Dwarfs and said, well, we've had to go and start sculpting now, obviously, and get things done. He hands Ronnie this piece of paper, and Ronnie takes one look at it and goes, right, okay, so let's move on. We can't fix that now. Let's just get rid of that. That's actually how the Chaos hats were born. And it's one of the reasons I love them, because they were never supposed to get so big and out of control, ridiculous as they are. And I love the fact that he just went, stuff it, we can't do anything about it, it'll be fine.
It's fantastic. There's something that's become so iconic of that force. When you think of a Chaos Dwarf, you think of curly beards, tusks, and big hats.
Absolutely.
It's basically an axe that is awesome. I love it. And it's become their aesthetic. It's become what they are.
Absolutely. Hashu has vanished. God bless him. He's just not the fiery doom god bull of flame anymore. All the weaponry is gone. All we remember now are big hats, red and yellow. And God, we love it. I will love it till my dying days.
I mean, they did throw them a little bone, didn't they, at one point when there were Chaos Dwarf crew for the Hell Cannon way back when, and that was I think that was probably the last we saw of them outside of Forge World, wasn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm currently working on how to build a Chaos Dwarf army for Age of Sigmar, and the idea I've got is ridiculous. It's a mixture of giant big hats,
of course,
because they need to be big hats. Lots of demon-infused weaponry, so every weapon will have some kind of demon attached to it.
Excellent.
And let's just say, how the Caradron Overlords really got AOS'd? So, they've got guns, they've got airships, and you look at the Forge World Chaos Dwarfs and you think, well, they're good, they're really nice, but they're a little bit too Warhammer Fantasy Battle. They're not very Age of Sigmar. They don't have any of the fantastical nature. So do you know what they need? Let's think. So they're probably going to be from the Realm of Fire, because that's, Chaos Dwarf, Realm of Fire. Mm-hmm. Realm of Fire is
Forges, that kind of thing.
It's going to be quite difficult to get around in the Realm of Fire, I think. How about they're all in little mech suits?
Very cool.
Very nice.
So demon-infused
Very
mech
nice.
suits.
Protect them from the heat and everything, yeah?
Of course.
Yeah, I like that. I do like that.
So that's
nice. You could even take it a step further and have them fused with their engineering.
Well, what's one of the big things that happened to the Chaos Dwarf sorcerers?
They turn to stone, don't they?
They do. Yeah. Let's play around with that for a little bit. How about Chaos Dwarf sorcerers, or Chaos Dwarfs in general, don't get turned to stone, but they become one with the mech suit?
That's great. You could even have little Chaos Dwarves with little wheels on them and stuff like that, or caterpillar tracked bottoms or something. That'd be great.
I'm going full blown ridiculous Age of Sigmar with these things, so that's going to be another ridiculous thing that I'll be working on. I was
going to say I have to tangent very slightly because I've just thought of an amazing idea based off what you said.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Blood Angel short story where basically he was a chaplain in life and his body was absolutely smashed to bits, so he's just wired into a battle barge now, and he's constantly fighting the Black Rage because he's so hacked off at being stuck in a battle barge.
Yes,
he's like, ram everything so I can feel something. But you could almost have, do you remember Astrogoth, the High Priest of Ashu?
There are sometimes entire
edition who was
half an hours where I don't remember Astrogoth.
Astrogoth. Was Astrogoth the one that was in he'd half turned to stone?
Yep.
So he was in a walking mech thing.
Yes, he was.
You could almost have a dwarven battle barge made out of the big nautical. What's the ship called? From my memory is terrible at the minute. The nautical ship from the Caradron Overlords. We've seen it done before with the Kraken being in this. You could almost have that ploughing through a sea of lava, as you talk about. Astrogoth sat in his statued form at the helm, with just Mechadandrite tentacles coming out of him going into the battle barge. He's not quite done yet.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, that's an awesome idea. I really like that.
Yeah.
So can he. The mech suit idea and a very mechanised Chaos Dwarf army. Love it.
Yeah, so the notion of the old Chaos Dwarf sorcerers, the ones who've completely turned to stone, wired into machines, so they can still move, so they can still do stuff. Yeah, I like that a lot.
It's very Necron, we're not touching on new material by doing it, but I love the fact that their essence could still be in there, so their bodies have turned to stone. It doesn't negate any of the power of their mind or their magical essence. Perhaps they're not done in this world.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Oh, bastard, I've just bought myself the Caradron Overlord army. Shit. Damn it, Adam.
This is what I do.
Yeah. This is exactly what happens on this show. People go away and then they empty their wallets through the Games Workshop. It's all very insidious.
I wish I was being paid. But yes, that's a nice way to little segue that we can use here. So, Chris, you said there that you have been a manager and worked at Games Workshop. What is your story for Warhammer? How did you start getting into the hobby? Where did that journey lead you? All that type of thing.
Well, I will try not spend too long on my misbegotten youth, but I feel I have to tell it because because it's symbolic of how I started. Obviously, I was 10, or actually no, I was 9, the young age of 9.
Single digits.
God, that seems an eternity ago. Back when the Gash still walked the land and was immune to cannonballs, right?
And looked like Pennywise in a robe.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not going down that route. I won't take your bait. I love that Pennywise. So
you know what? I love it too. I rag on it, but I love it.
Yeah, it's great. Rambozo the Clown. He's fantastic.
All fear the crown of command. That's all I'll say. That you can't actually see a crown, but who cares? So yeah, back when I was 9, I was sat in my best friend's bedroom. We lived together in side-by-side detached houses, so it was constantly in each other's pockets, and we were sat playing the launch of Resident Evil 1 way back in the day with his brother. And his brother picks up a magazine and starts talking with his younger brother behind him. It's my turn on Resident Evil. I'm running down the corridor, getting the ever-loving crap scared out of me by those 2 fucking dogs.
I know exactly the corridor you mean. Smashy
My
smash.
dreams 30 years on. Best jump scare ever, no matter what anyone says. And he turns to me and he says, do you want to start a new hobby? And it was those lines, actually, when I started writing a blog for board games, that was the line I opened with, because it was those words that have slammed me into mountains of debt over the years for this goddamn plastic crack obsession.
He may as well have offered you a cigarette, you know?
Exactly. Do you want to start a new hobby? Thanks, Rab. Thanks very much. You've defined my life for the next 30 years, and he often brings stuff up. So I go across and I look at this teeny tiny leaflet, and those of you who are older than 25 will have seen this leaflet kicking round about. It used to come inside every little white polystyrene box that Games Workshop did, so you would unsleeve your metal crack of goodness at the time, and probably lead if we're going so far back for some miniatures. You would unsheath your cardboard weapon, throw it away because it wasn't important, and you would hold in your hands this beautiful white polystyrene that was probably cracked in somewhere box, and it had beautiful sexy toy soldiers in it, but inside there was a tiny little book, tiny, filled with magical promises of your future. And I unfolded this 8-pointed star of chaos, and inside was this Chaos Space Marine. You know what? I'm going to get a picture of this today and put it in the Fluffenhammer, so anyone who's watching, get onto there and check it out. Right? And you will see this lovely Space Marine, Chaos Space Marine. He's yellow, he's red, he's pink, he's got all sorts of bloody colours on him, and he's covered in spikes. And I thought, that is an action figure I want to have in my Jurassic Park team outside when we're playing in the garden. And then I discovered that's not what it's about at all. But I still wanted it right there and then, and that's what led me down the slippery slope. So we started talking about it the next couple of weeks, and we started going along to my brother's cousin's house, who had a very large Warhammer collection. And I'm talking large. We had an entire room dedicated to it. The walls were filled with old blue rusted metal shelving from welding workshops, and they were lined with miniatures. Eldar armies, Empire armies, 2nd edition Orc armies. It was fantastic, and I have touched on before, but I have to say it again. He had the largest Bad Moon army I have still to this day ever seen, led by Nazdreg Ud Zahura Zagub of the boat.
So cool!
He was a stunning miniature, and for his time, Jimmy had painted him really well. It was done fantastically. And just seeing everything sat round about, and then obviously Rab's Dark Angel army, hosts of Ravenwing land speeders, it pulled me right in, absolutely, and I had to be involved. A few weeks later was going to be the launch of the U40K, so 3rd edition, Dark Eldar, and we went
way back when.
So we're from Dumfries, just Thornhill, little town just outside of Dumfries, and we had to drive all the way up to Games Workshop Air because it was our closest in the arcade.
Yeah.
And arriving at that store, it was packed, it was sweaty, it was old Games Workshop, so it was garish red carpet, garish red walls, cream-lined shelves, bent buckled old fittings. God, it was beautiful. I loved it. And the entire centre of the shop had been decked out in 3rd edition 40k, and this is what it did to me. This is where I began. I bought the core box, so I bought the hardback book, I bought a Space Marine battalion, I drained my parents dry, I bought a Space Marine command squad, I bought an attack bike, and I bought a land speeder. All plastic 3rd edition kits, and I loved them. Fantastic.
That was the start, wasn't it? That was really the start when they were really pushing for the all-plastic armies, really.
Absolutely. It was the first time as well that Space Marines had looked sexual, obviously. Everyone was used to two-dimensional Rogue Trader miniatures, which we look back now and think they were amazing. But at the time, when you saw the change in Space Marine plastics, you were like, oh my god, this is revolutionary. We've been using these Space Marines for 15 years in the hobby. Like, it's madness. We're still using those plastics now. Kids are still using them in their armies. I know the Primaris wave is hit and we're going into that, but God, they've been a staple of our hobby, and that's what sucked me in. Absolutely. I went home from that glorious trip to Games Workshop Air after meeting a life-size Slayer called Ramsey who worked there. Ramsey, if you ever listen to this, thank you for all you did for me that day. It was fantastic. It probably has also helped spawn a magnitude of chaos throughout my life. I came home and I decided to go to my army. So at first I decided to go Ultramarines, and I sprayed them all blue, Ultramarines blue. And then I decided I would go Imperial Fists, so I sprayed them white, and then I sprayed them yellow. These miniatures were getting extra armour saves, let me tell you that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I imagine that by the end they were just looking like lumps of colour, like lumps of paint solidified on their bases.
My attack bike, George, Jesus Christ, I feel sorry for that attack bike. In fact, I actually also have, I'm going to stick it on the Fluffenhammer again, my first ever painted Imperial Fist from when I was 9. It's going up on the group for everyone to have a look at. Please, God, remember I painted it when I was 9. Do not judge me. And that's what started for me. So in my youth, 9 to 15, 16, every Wednesday, every Sunday, I would meet up with my best friend next door, his brother and his cousin. We'd go up to his house and we'd schedule battles. So we'd always have a battle every Saturday or Sunday, depending on what day Jim was off. It would be me v Stephen, me v Jim, me v Rab. We'd rotate around and we'd have a whale of a time. Now, we only had 10 11 armies to cover all of Warhammer and all of Warhammer 40k and most specialist games. So yeah, there was proxies, and the terrain was less than impressive, let's just say. Jim was a woodworker, and he made some walls that I will never forget. They have been so well remembered over the years. Little 2x4 bits of wood. You go into B&Q now, you'll buy them in massive rolls for about £3. But by God, my Space Marines defended those walls like legends. There was one solid MDF building that was sprayed car grey and silver with some plastic screws on the outside for like reinforcements. My God, I was on that building every chance I got. Devastator squad, 4 heavy bolters, Sergeant Last leading from the front. I destroyed my enemies. And started a few battles, to be honest. And Christ, I could never get used to the way you buy bike squadrons back in the day. I did it wrong in every single game, but that's by the by.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I continued doing through that. We did have a divergence into many specialist games. So we played Necromunda, we played Mordheim, we played Battlefleet Gothic. There was a slight divergence into some White Wolf role-playing for a while, but that ended quite sharpish and we came straight back into Warhammer Quest.
I am so sorry.
Of course.
You have my utter sympathies for a bit of White Wolf.
I know. It was a dark time. But thankfully, I was led out of that cave of darkness by the world of Warhammer Quest. My saviour, my hero, and something that I am going to continue to destroy for the rest of my life because, God damn it, I have a son and he will have children and they need as much Warhammer Quest, old school. I'm not doing this for me anymore. I'm doing it for my generations to come. Okay. We had entire summers in those mines. We went to Nippon, we went to Cathay, we went everywhere. And I suppose the reason I'm emphasising so much on my childhood and how it dominated everything here is because when I was 18 and in college, I got the great news that in Dumfries they were opening a Games Workshop. a Games Workshop in my home local town. I was at college at the time, and I was absolutely thrilled, not just for the possibility of toy soldiers on my doorstep, but just to be part of a gaming community, and to have it round about. There wasn't just the four of us. I thought it was going to be great. So I went down for its opening day with my best friend, who's still playing to this very day, and we walked in and we met Gary Warner, a man from Newcastle that sadly I no longer communicate with, but he really was everything to me back then. He was inspirational from the minute I walked in the door. And I know there's a lot of horror stories about Games Workshop staff and what they used to be, but let me just tell you, a lot of those are just horror stories, the odd exceptions. Games Workshop staff have always been legendary at enthusing people into the hobby. And he did that for me the second I walked in the door. And he offered me and my friend an interview after 10 minutes of talking to him on that same day.
Wow, that's fab.
Yeah, they'd had staff from Carlisle through to prop up the store for the day, and staff from Durham had actually come up as well. But they still needed staff for the core store, so we went and we had our interviews, and I had my amazing interview with this man, and I did everything you are not supposed to do in an interview. I really stressed that. I did not engage him. We were surrounded by toy soldiers. I kept interrupting questions to ask about toy soldiers. He was asking me what customer service meant to me at 18, and I cut him off to ask about a Logan Grimnar that had been edge highlighted on the shelf behind him. And then we spent 10 minutes talking about Logan Grimnar. I'm pretty sure I also went into a massive rant about Warhammer Quest not being on the shelf as well, now that I think back. But I walked out of there full in the knowledge that I had a great time, loved it. I actually cannot remember what I bought on the day. Actually, I can. It was the Storm of Chaos the White Dwarf that was highlighting the Storm of Chaos that was due to come out in a couple of weeks. And I bought some paints and some glues and some spray, and I held off because I wanted Archeon's Horde for Storm of Chaos, the big army box set. And I went to work at Homebase.
My God.
Yeah. I went to work at Homebase because it was the weekend and I was a college student and I needed to earn money. And 10 minutes into my shift, I get a phone call from Gary, and he says, I want you to start on Monday. And if you can't start on Monday, you tell me when you can start. I told him I would start on Monday. I had college on Monday. I still had 3 months left of the course to finish. I did not know what I said. I made a terrible mistake. Still, I was stood in the fertiliser aisle at that time, so we're talking like all the bits and pieces in Home-based Dumfries. I put my phone down, unprofessional as I was answering it at work, and I walked straight to the office where I handed my resignation, and I said, I've got a job doing my dream hobby. And then I went home, and I shit myself because I realised I was going to college. But you know what? I spoke to my college lecturer, and without tooting my own horn, I was doing pretty good at college at the time. And he said, you know what? Go for it if it's your dream. I just thought I'll take a year out, do something I love, get some real experience in a shop, because everyone seems to end up in a shop after college. I thought at 18, so I might as well get some experience on hand. And yeah, I finished my college course externally, and I joined Games Workshop. And then later on that weekend, I also found out that my best friend got the part-time job on the Saturday as well. So not only had we grown up together, playing every Wednesday, playing every Sunday, we were now working in the same shop together. And I was going to be full-time, and he would work on the weekends as a key-timer. Fantastic. So I started in Games Workshop Dumfries. I was there for 9 months, 10 months, and then one day the regional manager comes down and he says to us, well, we're closing the shop, and he calls me for a meeting in the back, and I thought, oh God, that's it, I'm getting let go, I've left college for this. And he sits me down and he says, do you know what, you're probably one of the best things that's come out of this shop, I don't want to lose you, would you consider moving to Carlisle? We've got a space there. Well, it is. We kind of have a space there. We're going to make one if you want to come. That's what we're doing. Wow. And I thought, you know what? Yeah, I will. I don't want to stop. I know my year's nearly up, but I'm not finished this roller coaster journey yet. So I accept. And again, I shit myself because I have to go and explain to my girlfriend that I've decided to commute every day from Thornhill to Carlisle, which is a totally unfeasible drive for anybody, especially at the time. Games Workshop had a policy that anyone under 21 was on reduced wages, and I used to get paid £666.90 a month.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, it was a dark time, let me tell you that, ladies
I
and
can
gentlemen.
imagine.
Just about half of my money was going on fuel just to get to work for the first couple of months. But you know what? Goddamn, I accepted. I was not ready to leave the coaster yet. So, just before my 20s, I land in Games Workshop Carlisle, and I love it. I meet a man called Stephen Howe. Adam, you might remember Stephen Howe?
Stephen.
Yep. Stephen Howe is a legendary manager. Legendary, and also an amazing human being. I owe him so much. He catapulted my management career and has probably given me the basis for a lot of dealing with people that I work with nowadays. He's currently still the manager of Games Workshop in Glasgow, and he will never leave that post for love nor money. So if you are in Glasgow, you go see him, you say hello, and you say, I know a staff member of yours, and he will tell you that I am the goddamn best seller of core games in the world. Come back and tell me, all the Fluffenhammer people, right? So, yeah, I join him, and I am inspired by him. He's an absolutely amazing leader of people, and after 3-4 months working with him, I decide that I want to be a manager like him, and I'm not going to leave Games Workshop. So I stay, and I buy a flat in Carlisle. I tell my girlfriend after I bought the flat at the time. That was a bit of a mistake. I did that in the wrong order. But regardless of that, I moved to Carlisle and I had an illustrious career. Let's put it that way. I stay there for another 7 months, 8 months as a full-timer. No, got my times wrong. It was 9 months as a full-timer. I stayed there working with a lovely man called Scott Dixon. Adam, you might remember him as well.
I do.
Lewis Liddell was our part-timer, who is the current manager of Games Workshop Carlisle. And we dubbed ourselves the Mournival because we were the Mournival.
Brilliant.
We all had characteristics of the Mournival that we embraced. Stephen, our leader, was Abaddon. Not sure
I was going to ask which one was Abaddon.
Maybe not publicly proud of this, but he had the red mist. My God, when something went wrong or we didn't do something, the mist descended. And he was our leader. He was first company. He was who we bowed to. Scott Dixon was the most jovial, upbeat and enthusiastic man you will ever meet. He painted tartan Skaven, tartan orcs. He constructed Wombot for a Games Day army, which I still have in the cupboard. I'll put him on the Fluffenhammer as well. It was an orc dreadnought made into the shape of a womble. It was amazing.
Awesome.
We did a Womble-themed snake clan for a Games Day board one year.
That is amazing.
Yeah. He did a 3,000-point Skaven Clan Eshin skirmish army for Storm of Chaos. Not one rank-and-file miniature, and I have the army in my cupboard because he gave it to me as a leaving present.
Oh my
Wow.
He converted
3,000 points.
3,000 points of skirmish.
In that game system.
I have a case downstairs full of Jazales, just full of the damn things. I refuse to part with them. I have to emphasise Scott because, again, he inspired me for the hobby so much. He did things no one ever could. He did noise marines that were the brightest colours I'd ever seen anyone paint in a Slanesh army in. Bright orange and flesh and bleached bone. It's so striking. He converted Smaug long before Hobbit was even talked about. He was angry at the fact they had left Smaug out of everything. How dare they bring Lord of the Rings into Games Workshop and leave Smaug behind? So he converted the red one out of a fell beast, and my God, it was glorious. Again, I still have it. I promise you, people, I'm putting all these things up on the Fluffenhammer.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Definitely.
That can't be forgotten about, and he did everything fantastic. He was a hobby god. And Lewis was little Garviel Loken. new boy on the block, had some shocking sales skills. Was an artist, tried to paint every miniature like it was a giant artist's brush. So he was doing canvas work on Space Marines. You would find his Empire regiment looking pretty shoddy around the clothing and face section, but having banners that looked like they had been painted by Greek gods onto walls. So nobody could. He's currently still in Games Workshop Carlisle. He's now the manager of that store, took over from me, and highly recommend getting there and speak to him. He's a fantastic gentleman.
Oh, the man's fantastic. He is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Absolutely. He's carrying the torch like an absolute hero, and hopefully he will pass it on to the hero he is. So yeah, I I joined that team, and we were the Mournival. And then the sad time came at the end of 9 months when the Mournival had to be broken up. I left. I went off to join the management training program in Games Workshop, which if someone had marketed it to me accurately, it was not a management training program to get your own store and become a manager. It was 16 weeks of hell, never seeing a vegetable, living in hotels and travelling all over the country. I might have slightly reconsidered it at the time. Well, yeah, I joined the management training program. I worked through it at head office. I made some fantastic friends at head office, and I came back and got my very own store in Games Workshop Sutton Coldfield, down in Birmingham.
Yeah, it's just up the road from me.
Up the road from your good self,
yes.
In the more affluent area.
Absolutely. Oh yes, it's very upmarket here. Definitely.
Oh, I was in awe. My first weekend in Sutton Coldfield, I had a 12-year-old lad come up to me with a roll of cash, and I'm not talking a roll of cash, a few 20s from his mum. I'm talking a roll of cash, like he had just won it in a bet film from Snatch. he was straight off there with hard drug money. On Big Hero 6, actually, I don't know if you've seen Big Hero 6 when the little kid rocks up to the rock bot fight and puts the roll of cash down. That's exactly what the scenario was. He whops out these 20s out of this, out of this, and I thought, my God, I'm going to love it here. It's fantastic. Sorry, people. Needed a bit of lubrication there.
Again, Slanesh.
Oh, yeah.
It happens.
I'm sorry. I just want to touch my Necromunda gang leader with his large single-barreled weapon. There we go, I'm good. Right. So, yeah, I joined Games Workshop Sutton Coldfield in 2007, I believe. My first store, my very own masterpiece. And I get there, and I discover that the store is shit. It's full with angry, gnarly people that have been mistreated and staff members who don't care. So I spent a week in the store, made a few friends, got to know the gamers, and then promptly had to remove most of the staff members from the business until I was just on my own, which makes me sound like a very harsh man, but I'd like people to believe that I wanted to make the best Games Workshop possible for the community, and I couldn't do that without...
Yeah, of course.
I got the right people into the job, and I absolutely loved my time there. Do you know what made me pick the Sutton Coldfield store? Because I got the choice if I wanted it or not. What made me pick that store was it had a games room, but it wasn't the games room. I didn't care about having a games room. It was something in the games room. Mm-hmm. It was an 8x4 gaming table that was carved out in a massive dungeon.
Oh.
So it was, imagine people, if you will, 8x4 of wood. Imagine pine walls coming up the edge of this table, sprayed black, so it's like a deep box. And then imagine polystyrene dungeon walls all over. They had built it specially for a Mordheim campaign that had ran for 2 years down there.
Wow.
In the sewers of the city. And they were going... Oh, it was an amazing board. I don't think I have any pictures of it. I might reach out to some friends and see if I can get some pictures to put up. But I'm going to try it. And they were determined to destroy that board. I refused. I absolutely refused. It was one of my first things I said to my new staff member. I was like, you get your backside down to Wix now, take any petty cash you want out of the till, and you buy 8x4 worth of wood, because we're putting a lid on that. We'll turn it into a game table like we need to for the shop, but we are not killing that table. It's getting used.
Too beautiful. It's too, that sort of thing. It would be just too beautiful to destroy. It's no.
So at this point, you're looking at a guy who spent 10 years of his life playing Warhammer Quest, and someone's telling him to destroy a dungeon into Karakazal, and I'm like, no, it's not happening. Not happening. I've got heroes that need to adventure in this. Thank you very much. I can convert squares into inches for movement. You leave me alone. So yeah. I took over Games Workshop Sutton Coldfield. So at this point, I'd done some training in some other stores as a manager. I've worked in Dumfries, I've worked in Carlisle, I'd worked in Ayr briefly to cover it for a few weeks while I was training. I worked in Newcastle to learn under Gary Warner. The same man that gave me my interview ended up becoming the man who became my management trainer when I was away. And to this day, he has left the company now and works for Travelling Man. Not Travelling Man, Forbidden Planet. To this day, I'm the only person he ever passed on a management training course in his 22 years in Games Workshop. Wow. So I do take some pride in that fact. A little bit big-headed, I take pride in it.
I joined a harsh taskmaster, yeah?
Oh yeah, he was a machine. I was living in fear constantly. He never has passed anybody on the course, and I learned everything I could. And I don't think I'd have done it if it wasn't for the wisdom of Steve Howe that had come before.
Mm-hmm.
That and I actually went to do a store visit on the Metro Centre, and the manager at the time I'd never gotten on with. I'd never liked him. I had thought he was we were sat in the office going over his red book. I have to use some fairly heavy language for this, and he says, "Are you all right?" And he's like, "I have to be honest, Mal, I've always thought you're a cunt." always really rude and short and blunt, and I'm finding this a challenge to communicate with you because I can't see past it. And he just looked at me and he went, "Oh, fucking hell, no one said anything like that to me ever. You want to go for some lunch?" And we went for some lunch at a baguette shop in the Metro Centre and talked. It doesn't matter what we talked about, it's not for here, but we spoke about that, and I loved him after that. He's a great man. He now is a regional manager in Games Workshop, travels all over and oversees stores in the northeast and the south for people. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he was inspirational to me at the time. So going back to Games Workshop Sutton Coldfield, I worked there for 1.5 years. It was fantastic. It was glorious. I loved it. I met some amazing people and some, quite frankly, amazing hobbyists. And for the first time, I experienced having so many Games Workshops within close proximity to each other that you found out so much about how this community spreads itself like a net.
Yeah.
So Carlisle, where we are, Adam, it feels like Carlisle is the only hobby we have because it's a little torch in the middle of nowhere. And I think that's what people who are in Carlisle see, but for people like George who've got that network of workshops all over, so you're in Birmingham, you can go to any Games Workshop.
In very close proximity.
Exactly, you can pick 7 Games Workshops within half an hour, 40 minutes to go and visit. That is amazing. And that was the first time I experienced it. On my days off, I used to pick a new Games Workshop and go. I went to Shrewsbury, Solihull, Birmingham, Dudley. I went all over the bloody shop. I went to Warhammer World some days just to get out and experience the community. And that just enhanced everything for me, knowing that it wasn't just a bastion I was going back to anymore, that this thing spreads like a net across the country, and it's not just a net that we see on the internet, it's a net of people, and that again just reinforced my love of Games Workshop. I'll try not to tangent off too much longer as I keep talking.
No, please just keep talking. This is awesome.
That's what the Fluffenhammer's about, man. Please, go ahead.
I loved Games Workshop Sutton Coldfield, and at the time, my juggernaut of an old manager had led Carlisle through 3 years of solid growth in the middle of a recession. So to get financial for a second, he kicked the arse out of every target and his own targets year on year with his staff team when I was gone. So the Mournival was surviving, broken. In fact, most of the Mournival by this point, apart from Lewis, had broken up and gone elsewhere. And we did go back to Carlisle one night to have a Mournival initiation of Lewis to being a full-time member of staff. We got horrendously drunk. Scott and I met up together, and Lewis's wife, bless her, she started buying us these pints. These £10, we dubbed them Slaneshi bombs at the time, and Scott and I were being as macho as we could. We were like, chugging back these pints, another, give me another, like Thor. Oh, it was great, until we discovered the next day that those pints were £10 a time, and his missus had actually paid for them the whole night, and he rocked into the shop going, "Oh, I can't pay my electricity bill this month." So we felt a little guilty after that point. My God, he was initiated to being a space marine like a legend. Yeah, anyway, wow. I come back. We're in Games Workshop Sutton Coldfield, and Steve Howe phones me, and he says, "I've got the manager's job in Glasgow." He trained in Glasgow. Mm-hmm. His wife is from Glasgow. He wanted to take his family back to Glasgow. He got the job, and he's like, "This store's going to become available soon. I don't think many people will apply for it being in Carlisle." Mm-hmm. And I just thought, and gives a heads up. So I have a chat with him, and I put down the phone, and I speak to Gary Warner and my friends, and every one of them is like, "Do not do it. It is 3 years of solid growth against him. You're going into that shop. You're not going to make growth. You're going to get some performance management. It's not going to end well. Yeah. You want to stay where you are, growing." It is the business side of things. Games Workshop is a business, and I had to consider that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I
submitted a goddamn application anyway. I didn't care. Mm-hmm. I wanted to go home, and I wanted to kick his ass. I wanted to prove that I could beat Abaddon on the battlefield. I suppose I neglected to mention myself, ironically, although this is talking about myself. I was little Horace Axelrod. I was seen as the sense and the wise one. Anyone who's listening to this podcast for the last 1 hour and 7 minutes 48 seconds will not see that at all in the way I've rambled. But there is some wisdom. There is some wisdom to the madness. That's why I keep quiet. And I did it. I went and applied because I wanted to be better and I wanted to push myself. And quite frankly, I wanted to go home. I'd experienced this massive journey and I wanted to go back and almost bring everything I had with me, because Carlisle didn't feel as impressive at the time as Birmingham did for community. So I applied. I went for my interview at head office with my regional manager, Lindsay Blair, and head of HR. I sat in the room and I had my interview, and at the end of it, Lindsay asked me, so what do you really want to achieve when you go back to Carlisle? And I said, I want to crush my enemies, I want to see them driven before me, and I want to heed the advocation of my women. Apologies, Tracy. And my regional manager laughed. And I quoted that at the very end of my interview. And a week later, I got a phone call telling me I'd got the job if I wanted it and I could go home. So I said my goodbyes in Sutton Coldfield. I had a horrendously drunk last night out there. We played a game of Inquisitor. Yeah, it was a shockingly bad Inquisitor game that never actually finished.
And you were drunk while you were playing it.
You have to be drunk when playing Inquisitor.
I was going to say, yeah, you need to be in that Zen state of mind. I mean, I don't know how you manage that.
Exactly. And for anyone who's not played Inquisitor and you want to research into Inquisitor, let me surmise you with this. Games Workshop has built a house that many wonderful games have been housed in throughout the years. Inquisitor lives in the shack just built into the side of that house because we don't want to forget about it. But whoever decided to make a tabletop miniatures game that was a role-play game that you were not supposed to... What's going on here? So in a prime game of Inquisitor, I can remember I was saying to a guy, so what's your character going to do? And he's like, I'm going to run around the corner and shoot that guy. And I was like, but just a sec, Andrew. You don't know that guy's around the corner though. Like you can't see him. And he stood there on the board going, I can see him. Yeah. You have to put yourself in the mindset of a character. Be the role player. Be your assassin. Okay, I'm going to run around the corner and shoot that person. I'm an assassin. That's why we got horrendously drunk and never finished the game. Fantastic. That, and we spent 12 turns of a Death Cult assassin trying to unlock a door through lockpicking until the Black Templar got, quite frankly, fucked off at weigh-in and just punched the whole door down and went, right, we're in. What are we going to do now? And went, well, the whole plan was you were going to break in the building and seal the door to stop the cultists from getting you. There is no door anymore, so you're going to have to keep running. Yeah, madness. So I came home to Games Workshop Carlisle, and I met my new staff, had my handover, and all my full-timers were new apart from Lewis. I graduated into Space Marine. I had 3 staff members and a part-timer, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I came home, I ran campaigns, I kicked the ever-living crap out of it. I tried to re-engage the gaming room as much as possible. I brought back people who had... everyone's familiar with Mr. Stuart Murray from the Fluffenhammer. You'll be listening, no doubt.
Of course.
You were buried deep in the bowels of Zavi, Mr. Moz, and you would not come back. But god damn, I dragged you back to that shop and I sat you down with some orcs and you painted some amazing speed freaks, my friend. Stuart Murray is the only man in Games Workshop. I'd like to give him a shout out actually while we're here. Stuart Murray is the only man in Games Workshop history I've ever known who buys figures, who paints them, who will not buy himself new figures until they are painted. He does fully painted armies, people. That myth, because I'm sat in a room right now that is absolutely covered in plastic crack that's half painted, and it's quite shameful, to be honest. But that is the shame we all live with as hobbyists.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well done, Stu. I mean, that I've never heard of that before. That's
round of applause for Stu.
Mythical. That's the Games Workshop equivalent of...
Yep, the man is a hero. Man is a hero of the hobby, and you know what? I have to say this with no insult meant, because he knows what I mean. He used to come to my house every week for 5 years gaming. Muzz is not a golden demon painter. He does not paint that goes in a white dwarf. You know what he does? He knocks out armies, whole armies to great great tabletop standards. He inspires people by putting them on the table. He builds, he paints, he plays, he converts. He's what every hobbyist should aspire to be, really. Not to get themselves into White Dwarf and be the best because they can manage one amazing Space Marine. Someone who just grabs what they want to do, goes to the tabletop, fully paints it, fully builds it, immerses themselves in the culture and the theme, and rocks on with it.
Yeah. His current
so big shout out.
Awesome. Very inspiring.
His current Death Guard stuff makes me shiver with delight. It's ridiculous how good that's done.
Absolutely. And Muzz always sticks to red and black and golds, and with that Death Guard, which I believe are on the Fluffenhammer's Instagram, is that correct, Adam?
They are indeed, yep, because they're so bloody good, I want them out there.
Exactly. People, if you've not gone to see them, get yourselves across to Instagram. Go and see them now while you're listening to this, because they're bloody fantastic. They really are. And everybody needs to see them. He's pushed himself out his comfort zone with that colour scheme, and he's done it really well. Good job, Muzz.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I went back to Carlisle and I dragged people like him back because I wanted people like him in my shop playing games. I tackled everything. I didn't shy away from specialist games, even though we were told not to. I made sure to try to include everything, and the result of that, I did everything that people told me I couldn't do. I took Carlisle to 2 more years of solid growth in a recession.
That's really good. That's amazing.
Yeah,
it is impressive, especially for like such a small store in such a small area.
Exactly. Exactly. And to without going into too many details, no one's ever beaten my targets. Sorry, Lewis. I'm very sorry, Lewis, my friend, but you've never beaten my figures, and you've never had the most successful day in Carlisle. That is me, baby. I love you, bro. Thank you. Right, so I sadly, at 7.5 years, ironically enough, I met my girlfriend. Not at the time now. I met my girlfriend through Games Workshop when I came back to Carlisle, and I had my son, Tristan, and at that point, priorities changed for me. I wanted a little bit more money because I had a son to look after, and I didn't have weekends with him. And if I'm very, very honest, I loved Workshop so much that I kind of neglected my son a little bit when he was born. I just focused totally into my work because I was a workhorse, as you can probably tell from.
Yes, I'm getting the impression.
I buried myself in the passion of Games Workshop was the problem. It was a hobby for me that was so much of a passion, and I did neglect certain things. And I decided that enough was enough after 7.5 years, and I could go back and continue my hobby. And ultimately, Games Workshops are little boxes of hobby amazement that are driven by the passion of the people running them. And if your passion wanes at all, or if you take your eye off and focus on something else, like your home life, and you don't have the good balance, is what I'm trying to say, actually, because people, you have a home life and make it sound like everyone in Games Workshop doesn't have one. But if you don't have the balance correct and it's squee-whiff, your Games Workshop goes off track because you are the leader. You are the person leading your battle barge. And at the time, I wanted other things that were better for my family. So I decided to look elsewhere for opportunities in the company. I got offered to apply for a regional manager's job, and I didn't want that because I didn't want to drive up and down the country. And the competition was stiff. I wanted to stay close. And I got offered Games Workshop Edinburgh, which was too far away from me. I didn't want to go there and apply for that and see if I got it. I went across to Helsinki with a friend of mine, Andy Barker, and we had a look at the Helsinki store. Yeah, you know what Helsinki is? It's fucking cold, people. It's expensive. The shop, actually, I don't know if anyone's ever seen pictures of Games Workshop Helsinki. It has this pod at the front of the store that protects it from the cold outside. So you actually have to push a button to step into the pod. The pod then closes and the pod then opens into the store. That's how freaking cold it is there.
It's like Fenris.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is Fenris incarnate. Not to mention when we got there, we got charged a living quid for like a tin of deodorant, a bottle of Coke and a Snickers, and I thought, I can't live in this climate. We came back, I said no, and my regional manager said, well, thank Christ, because it's the depression capital of the world. I had a friend who went across there and nearly killed himself. And I thought, you've just sent me for a job across there, boss. What are you doing? Anyway, and it was at that point I made the hard decision that it was time up for Games Workshop. I had to, and I left. And I'm still sad to this day that I left. I am. It was a really big regret. I love what I do now. Freaking love my job now. I love my family life. I love my balance. I've got it really good. But now I can do the hobby. And that's where I've been for the last, in fact, no, to add another 3 minutes to the show. Sorry. Say, I actually left Games Workshop with a slight chip on my shoulder. I feel if I'm going to tell the story, I need to tell the whole picture. Mm-hmm. I left Games Workshop with a slight chip about prices on my shoulder. I always defended Games Workshop's price rises until the day I was repricing, and I repriced the Warwalker, the Elder Plastic Warwalker, from £10 to £22. And I repriced the Dire Avengers, which had gone from a 10-man box set to a 5-man box set, but the price had gone up by £2.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people came in and asked me about it, and I couldn't justify it. Yeah. I fucking couldn't do it. I just... it saddened me a little bit. Great Swords came out, and they went from being 5-man metal miniatures for £15 to 10-man plastic miniatures for £25. The current leadership of the company had gone wrong. It was wrong. It was pricing people out of the hobby, and I know that is the bloody horrible phrase we see people whinging about online. Oh, they've priced the competition out of the hobby. No. But it was true at the time for me, and I left with that chip on my shoulder.
There is an element of truth, isn't there? I mean, I know it's become cliche to whinge about it, but there is an element of truth to that.
Yeah, the hobby went through a dark time. We've said it a couple of times, and it sounds like we're kind of making jokes out of it, but the path that they took was terrible. It was they couldn't have made worse decisions.
Well, it felt anti-customer, didn't it?
Yeah. Well,
for a brief period, it felt as though they were actively fighting you. It's almost as though they didn't want you in the hobby, especially if you played certain armies. Chaos Space Marine player, born in the blood, and there was a long time. I mean, to bring it back, as I said earlier, I can't believe that we're in the place we are now, where it's so good. It's so good to be involved in those armies.
I was just waiting to say, you cannot have the darkness. You cannot have the light we have now without knowing that it's darkness, and that's why I had to tell that little bit there, because I left with that chip, and I actually fell out of the hobby for a good 3-4 years, and I just couldn't bring myself to go back to it because of that sort of motivation. And I feel if we're very honest, we've all gone through times like that. I don't know many hobbyists who haven't sunk into that pit, but as Gary Warner used to say when he was training me down in Newcastle, life is walking through a corridor, and on your right you've got a shelf of successes, and on your left you've got a shelf of failures. And if you walk down that corridor and you tell me when you reach the end of it that your right hand shelf is full and your left hand shelf is empty, I'm going to kick your fucking ass because you're lying to me. Your left hand shelf should be full to the brim that it's cracked, and your right hand one should have a few things on it. That's how things go. And that's what Games Workshop was for me. It was that at that time, it was that corridor. There was so much on the failure side that they'd let down. I remember being in the managers meeting where we got told they were pulling specialist games because people, and the justification was at the time straight from the head, sorry, but a new hobbyist spends £400 in the first 6 months of this hobby. A new person who starts specialist games spends £20 on a Blood Bowl gang and walks away. We're not going to continue to support that. But at the time, that was blinkered thinking. I turned to Necromunda at my right again. People are spending more than £20 on a gang because they're continuing to support it. They're supporting it in the right way. We have great internet support now. We have fantastic articles. We have much sexier miniatures than we've ever had in years. And that's why we've crawled out, ironically, to quote 40k, we've crawled out of the age of darkness and we're starting to head back to the golden age of technology. You know what I mean? It will never be the retro love that some of us have, but god damn it will take us somewhere new and glorious.
Absolutely. I mean,
need to be. Nostalgia is this is what...
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. That's done. We've had it. That period is done. It's fine.
Nostalgia
We've
is
got something new now. We have this new age.
Yeah. I was going to say, nostalgia is powerful, but it's also poisonous. You know, you can use nostalgia to launchpad yourself into doing something new, but if you use it purely to look back on what was, then you're never evolving. You're going to stagnate.
It becomes corrosive, doesn't it? It becomes corrosive ultimately. You become closed off to new things. And the raw fact of the matter is, okay, fine, I love the old metal miniatures, I love the era of Second Ed and all of that stuff, because that's when I got into it, but it wasn't better.
No.
Yeah. It definitely wasn't better. The game systems weren't better, the miniatures weren't better. On an objective level, they just weren't. They just were not.
You're totally right, George, totally.
It's like looking back at old cartoons or whatever, isn't it? You used to watch as a child, you know. You can objectively say, well, they spark this association, so I have a degree of sentiment for them, but they're shit.
Yeah. My friend actually summed it up with... Yeah, I sat down to play Hero Quest with my friend at his house a few months back, and we sat down, and halfway through the game we were like, you know something, mate, this is awesome being able to relive this, but you know something, this system's shit, isn't it? Like this rolling for movement on 2d6, what a load of bollocks. This is not right at all. But I'm sat again stroking my Hero Quest beside me. I'm sat stroking Keller's Keep because I recently got both for £40 on a good deal. But I know, but again, you know, nostalgia is not what it used to be. It's like PlayStation 1 games. If I were to go back, I went back to Pandemonium recently, an old game from PlayStation 1 that I loved.
Yeah, I remember Pandemonium.
God, that was great! It was my childhood in PlayStation format, mate. But I turned it on and I thought, fuck man, this is awful. I can't even see because the graphics are so bad.
Yep. It's exactly that. It is exactly that. And, you know, it's not that people are wrong for having an association or a sentiment about these things. Obviously, they were formative at the time. But that's the point, isn't it? They were formative at the time. And if you're going to use them as an excuse to close yourself off to new things, then it's just going to become corrosive to you as a person, to you as a human being.
Totally.
Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. So I did have I'll finish off now. I had a 3-4 year hiatus from Games Workshop where I was quite angry about the way they were doing things because I didn't feel they were reflecting themselves really well. And competition got fierce, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Suddenly the wargaming market, which would not exist were it not for Games Workshop, I feel is worth saying. It just wouldn't be. You can love War Machine, you can love Frostgrave, you can love DC, you can Bolt Action, whatever the hell you people love, because it's all great, is worth it, but it wouldn't be here and standing if it wasn't for Games Workshop inspiring people for as long as it would have done. And they will always be the kings for that, but they weren't representing themselves well, and then they did the unspeakable thing. They destroyed my beloved Warhammer world.
Yes.
And at the time, my God, I was Abaddon. A little Horus Axeman had ascended to the ranks of being a first captain. I was furious they killed Warhammer. They killed my favourite game system. They wiped my old world out of existence. I'll never forgive you, Games Workshop. And I hated Age of Sigmar. I didn't even look at Age of Sigmar, but you know what? Instinctively in my gut, I hated the goddamn thing. I didn't want a thing to do with it. And then 6 months to a year later down the line, I picked up Age of Sigmar, the Stormcast Eternal book, and I started to read. And I started to read, and I realised that my Warhammer world was long dead.
Yeah.
And through its ashes, like Fulgrim, this beautiful creature had arisen. That Games Workshop, for me, I was wrong. I was totally wrong in all my rage. And Games Workshop had given birth to something that was an evolved form of Warhammer. Warhammer, you go back and play all the old editions you like. It's amazing, it's great, it will always be one of my favourite game systems, but Age of Sigmar is fun, it's fluent, it's what people nowadays need to engage with in the hobby.
It's accessible.
Yeah, the background.
You know, you don't need a huge army to play it. It's a superb system.
Exactly, easy to learn, really jargon-free as well. And what they did for me was, the Warhammer 40,000 universe has always been this canvas of a sky. I'm actually sat looking out my window, sticking my hands up in the air like a frickin' lunatic. I hope no one's looking at the window right now. But I'm holding my hands up to the sky like frickin' Rafiki holding Simba to the promised lands right now. I'm doing it, people. I don't care. I'm holding my antenna that's from my TV symbol right now. But anyway, I hold it to the sky, and it was this blank canvas of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. We want a planet, let's create a planet, let's blow the planet up. Who gives a shit? We've got infinite freedom. The old world was not.
No.
It was limited, it was capped, and there's only so much you can do with that. But now with the Realm Wars, anything is possible. Holy hell, Gotrek Gunnarsson is alive.
Yes, he's alive. He's
fucking alive.
alive.
You know what? I think Grimnir, obviously he had to go to Grimnir because Sigmar would have reforged him otherwise, but Gotrek's rocked up beside Grimnir and gone, you know what, pal? you've been here a while. Why don't you take a fucking nap and I'll take over? Because let's be honest, I'm just as hard as you now. So I came back into Age of Sigmar crashing like a beast, and it's held me in the hobby again since. And every week I look at something new and think, Christ, I need to buy that. They're expanding on the fluff so much. Yeah, it's as we keep saying and keep commenting, it's a glorious time, and that's where my journey is still sailing through the seas.
Yeah, man.
Brilliant. So pleased. I'm so pleased that it ended on that note too.
Yeah.
I'm so pleased. It seems to resonate with so many of the people we have on here, and with your experience, Adam, and mine, which is that it's a good place to be after the dark times.
Yeah. It's nice to be home.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is. But also for the home to have been refurbished slightly and to have been expanded a little bit. You know, we've got extensions now. There's maybe a basement and a new attic and whatnot.
Yeah.
Exactly, and you know what? This hobby is as expensive as it's always been. But you know what? It's never been a cheap hobby.
No,
it's an expensive hobby that rewards for having amazing miniatures. Everybody knows the second they walk in the door and they see those price tags, that is high. But now for the first time in years and years and years, those high price tags are delivering you things that are just stunning. I mean, let's not pretend about it. £75 is still a lot of money for people today to invest in a box. But your £75 is buying you so much. I am an enormous board game these days, and I can buy a £90 board game in the click of my fingers, but it's still will not deliver as much fun, enthusiasm, painting, passion, even the hobby side. And I'm not even touching on the goddamn hobby side of things.
No, this is just the
box set will give you.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It's because you feel as though there's something there, isn't it? I mean, I think it's why so many of us did fall out of the hobby when we felt as though we weren't being represented correctly by the company, or even if felt as though the company had active contempt for us, which it did feel that way for a brief period. There is an abstract quality to this hobby. There really is. Beyond the physical miniatures, you need to feel as though it's worth it, as though it's somehow worthwhile, as though you're going to get something that's beyond the fact of owning the physical miniature.
Yep.
It's almost like a communal aspect, and it needs to be there. It's very important, and they are knocking that out of the park right now.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah.
You get the sensation that you're part of something bigger, and that's, I think, it's something that, as you say, this hobby is expensive, but it's a hobby. You know, it's not.
What one isn't?
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's not keeping a roof over your head. It's not making sure there's food and heat. You know. This is something that you do for pleasure. So you put into it what you want, what you can. It doesn't have to be that every week you have to do this, you have to spend this money, you have to own something.
Although it has become that way.
Well, it has become quite. Yeah, but you know,
but that's the big difference between want and need, isn't it?
Exactly.
Because we don't need the stuff. There's need. None of us need this. I don't need all this Necromunda crap sat beside me now. It does nothing for my quality of life in terms of surviving. But do I want it? Hell yes, I want it. I want it weekly. I want more stuff to come out now. I want stuff to hurry up. Please hurry up.
Musquats.
Some crocs. I need some crocs in my life. Please tell me you've seen some crocs. Oh my god, I can't wait for it. I just want alligators that come out of the sewers that bite people. Giant condor rats with bombs strapped to their back. Hell, look at the Horus Heresy Weekender. They've created new guilds. They're finally doing stuff from up above in the hive that are going to come down and go, we're a lot fucking stronger than you. I'm not talking about those spirobolics in the background. We're here to stay now. You need us to make your food.
Yep.
Listen, the possibilities are infiniteness now.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's another thing, isn't it? Yeah, there is this feeling now that it is not so entrenched. It feels as though anything could potentially happen. And they've done stuff that none of us would have ever predicted. The Primarchs, the return of the Primarchs to the 40k universe, in both background and miniatures form. I would never have predicted that. Never, ever in a million years.
Yeah, Bobby G waking up, looking round about and going, why the fuck is this galaxy covered in aliens? Why is my dad? Why is my dad a god? What have you been doing? You've had 10,000 years, and what you're telling me is, you've been buffing my dad's ass on the throne and you've lost half the galaxy. What are you doing, people?
Not only that, we destroyed Monarchia for less than this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, fantastic.
Right, fellas. I think what we'll do now is then we're going to quickly spotlight, because there's something I really want to talk about, and then we're going to...
Oh, fair enough.
If you want, I will just do a quick spotlight, and then we'll call it a day. Because I know that this show's getting on.
I think that's fine.
Yep.
I think that's okay.
Because...
More than fine with that.
Because...
I think I know what you want to talk about, Adam. I've got a funny feeling.
Oh, God. What we want to do with the show is we want to get back to doing the spotlights and stuff. But Chris's story there is an amazing story, and we really wanted to get it shared with everybody. It is
absolutely
an incredible tale. So to finish things off, I'm going to spotlight something. Because in my hand here, I hold a big black tome. I own Malign Portents.
I was wondering what on earth you were going to say there.
Hashtag tits and tentacles.
I really was. Given the tone and timbre of the show thus far, I was really wondering.
And there is stuff in Malign Portents that I really would want to talk about. And at some point, I think I need to sit down and do something with this book, because this book is incredible. There is tales in here of things like Vandus Hammerhand talking to Sigmar. Sigmar is talking in the book as a actual being.
Nice.
Oh,
nice.
Right?
Wow.
Okay. This is before he goes off into the sky and starts throwing meteorites into the ground. Because Age of Sigmar is amazing. I could talk about the fact that Nagash is death from Discworld. All of his words have no punctuation and are in big black capitals.
Nice.
Which is
brilliant.
Beautiful.
That's
there is a sequence where Nagash and Arkan the Black have a conversation.
Oh, that'll be amazing. I love Arkan the Black.
Yeah, that's great.
It is so good. I mean, some of the stuff in here is... what is it? Hang on. What I require for you is to fashion all the worlds in my image. Would that I have the might, said Arkan. I would already have done so. I have the power to do it, fool. It is you who must supply the implements. Freaking love Nagash.
Were you reading from Malign Portents, or was that a biography of Hitler?
Hashtag bone.
Love it.
Hashtag bone Hitler.
Yep.
There's stuff about all of the gods, all the Chaos gods, when they realise what Nagash is up to, including Slaanesh.
Ooh,
very
nice.
What's really cool is there's a 2-page spread, and it's all of the gods and what happened to them. You turn the page, and down in the bottom corner, there is the Great Horned Rat's reaction.
Nice.
So, which is really well done, because it gives you the idea that he is separate from the other gods. There is explanations for the fungoid cave shamans and why they are what they are, which is really cool. It goes through all of that. But the thing I really want to talk about is the realm of Shyish, because for the first time ever, this book gives you an idea of what the realm of Shyish is. And it's...
Guys, we've got to be one messed up place.
It's fascinating. Right, so the realm of Shyish is all magic, right? It is all built out of death magic. And when a race starts to believe in its afterlife, the realm of Shyish expands. It grows new areas to build the afterlife for that race.
Oh, that's so cool.
So
that's brilliant.
So out at the corners, out of the edge of Shyish, there is always growth. There is always new belief fueling the afterlife. So there's for you here that for example, where's it gone? The Fire Slayers, that they die, and they believe that they are going to go to a place that is just nothing but tunnels and mines, and they and their ancestors will be able to create these great big rewards. But they're still going to mine it out, they're still going to build it. But that's their reward, is to create more rewards for themselves. And they're going to be with their ancestors and their families, and they're going to be able to work together. Right? Nagash rose, and he has taken all of these things, and all of these powers have come to him, and these afterlives are barren and empty now, but they still stand. Shadespire, which is a place that I love to bit, is in the dead centre of Shyish. Because in the centre, the death magic is weaker. It has been slowly moving out towards the edges to build these new afterlives.
Right.
So, in the middle, in the very, very middle, there are these realm gates where people came to and started to build and colonise. And they tried to make ways to live with the dead. So there's entire civilizations here which are half built through humans coming through and building these cities, but there's like dead districts where the afterlife still exists.
Right. So, that's so bizarre. So you've got the living commingling with the dead, essentially.
But
that's so weird.
You've got like these areas where people try to form trade routes, and they go through, and they come out the other end, and they've aged 100 years. They haven't died, but the death energy has taken all their vitality from them, and they come out as just walking cadavers, still trying to get to the end of their trade routes.
Ooh.
So there's nothing malicious happening. They've just died without actually ending.
Yeah.
The concepts that are being thrown here are incredible. I'm just going to read a couple of bits out. Some civilizations depict the underworlds of Shyish as an endless mountain range, whilst others think of it as a set of continental plates suspended one atop each other in an inverted pyramid of magical energy. Sound familiar? Many ogre tribes see it as an impossibly huge mouth that devours all things, whilst the vermin-worshipping tribes of Ratburrow see it as a set of pitch-black burrows that never end. Such is the nature of trying to define that which a mortal mind can never hope to fully comprehend. It's just nothing. It is shifting, moving cities and places. So, as I say, the centre of it is concrete, right? That is where there are towns, there are villages, there are people, there are civilizations. But the further out that you go from that into the expanding rings, it gets weirder and more mutable and changes, and it's not like the Realm of Chaos where there's shifting landscape. It's literally everything around you isn't there and becomes something else. And it depends. It's like an ocean. It's like a tide. The stronger the belief is in an afterlife, the more cohesive and the more solid that afterlife becomes an actual place. Whilst other places where, for example, the Wanderers, the Elven, the Lost Princes and whatnot, because their belief is so reduced now due to the scattered nature of their tribes and their civilization, it is now more of a ghost town, literally, where you can walk through walls. It's a shadow of an afterlife where you can go to.
It's very biblical.
It is
very biblical.
This is incredible. This is the high concept stuff that gets me about Age of Sigmar, where we've wondered for ages now, what is Shyish? Is it just afterlife? Is it a place where Nagash has built his domain and he's just dragging all the dead to him? He usurped and ate every single other god of the dead.
Nice.
He went round and just devoured everything. Because when the Age of Sigmar began, he was trapped under a mountain. He was when the realms formed, he was held prisoner, and Sigmar came to him and said, "This is what I need to do. This is what I need you to do." And Nagash said, "Yes, obviously, I will do what you ask of me." And he held his promise. This is a thing I absolutely love. Because Nagash is Nagash, he is still a creature of honour. He held every single promise that he made. Once those promises were fulfilled is when he left Sigmar's Panthelon, when he went off to do his own thing. That is brilliant, because even though he has become the big bad of Age of Sigmar, the bigger danger than even Chaos, he has been honourable and he has done everything asked of him. But now he believes that Sigmar broke that promise, and this is the catalyst by keeping the dead.
He doesn't feel like a big bad to me. He feels like inevitability given characterization.
Like, it feels more like, elemental, doesn't he, than being evil now.
Primal is what I was thinking,
He does, he's more like an aspect of being rather than an evil force.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty high ranks for some dodgy Khemri priest from the back of nowhere, I'll tell you that.
It's not bad, is it? He hasn't done too badly, really.
Aye, exactly. He went in for the long-term career plan.
No fast-track management for the Ash.
Exactly. He knew the health plan rewards at the end of the day, and he stuck it out till he retired. Good on you, Nagash. You legend. That book sounds fantastic. I need to pick that up.
It is an amazing book.
It does, yeah. Got to get it.
When I first picked it up, I did think, it's not as big as I would have liked. But then when I started reading it, I realised if it was any bigger, I wouldn't be able to read it, because it is packed. It is full of stuff. There isn't a single bit of wasted space. I got it yesterday, and I'm maybe a third through it, because I keep going back and rereading parts just to get some of the ideas. And I don't know if I should really talk about what Nagash's plan is. No, I'm not going to.
No, don't spoil it. Don't spoil it yet.
That'll be good. Yeah, give people time to sink in.
Yeah. Basically, Nagash, it's not laid out, right? It's what Nagash is up to is not laid out in a very easy A to B fashion. You kind of have to work it out. And holy God, is it huge and awesome, and I love it. Let's just say that there's a reason that Nurgle is the one who is really pushing against it. Out of every single other force that's out there who is going, oh God, that's not good, Nurgle is the one who has taken a very personal approach to stopping it.
Yes.
Because...
Wow, interesting.
Oh, it's so good, and now I want more Nurgle.
Well, historically, Nurgle is before Nagash, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nurgle is the decay and the elongation of life, the pain, the suffering, the endurance of keeping it going, but Nagash needs him dead. So I can totally see that relationship working out quite well. You know, they've got to die to get that power.
All I'm going to say is there is a line here, and it... You know when you read something and it conjures up an image in your head, and you can almost see like the movie version? Right? There's a certain sequence here which I can see in my brain, and it involves a very large greater demon and his almost pitiful cry of, "No, the circle will not break!" And he's just screaming and shouting as he is being destroyed. And it's so good! It is cinematic like you would not believe. And you can probably tell by how excited I'm getting talking about this. I cannot wait to have a malign Portents game. That's not even touching all the rule stuff that has come into it. Just the cinematic nature of, I want to fight things with my undead. I want to help Nagash.
Oh, you're on Nagash's side, even knowing what his plan is. That's interesting.
My God, I am with Nagash 100% because Nagash has become my boy. He is terrible. He is doing awful things. There is nothing that he is doing that you can turn on and say, you might have a point there. It is all deeply, deeply, unregrettably evil. But it makes sense for him. It makes sense for his history. It makes sense for... Oh, it's so good.
If you become his boy, can you have a good long conversation with him, send him some bribes, and ask him to just bring Vlad back? Would that be all right? Like he's got the power, and I really miss Vlad. So if we could just bring Vlad back.
Although if you bring Vlad back, you've kind of got to bring Isabella too.
There's always one that comes to the party you don't really want to be there.
I know, but you know, she's his wife, man. She's his wife.
I know, you've got to accept these things on the bro code, haven't you? Go, Vlad. Well, you're right.
I know nobody likes her. Nobody wants her at the party, but...
what we'll do is we'll just stick her inside the Dread Infernal.
You don't get Vlad without Isabella.
We'll stick Isabella inside the Dread Infernal, and then Vlad can just ride her around the battlefield. Wait, hang on, no, back up, no. I'll rephrase that. And he can use her as a
She can sit at home and polish the dome on his ring. That'll be absolutely fine.
Moving on, as we're about to hit the 2-hour mark. I think it's time to call it a night. Well, to call it a morning, as it actually is.
Or a morning, or a time of day it happens to be at this point. I don't know, I haven't opened my curtain.
Open your curtains, people. It is the day.
It is daytime. Let the sunlight into your pasty skin. So, with all that being said, thank you so much, Chris. This has been an absolute joy.
Absolute. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Oh, I've absolutely really enjoyed it, and obviously I've many more pearls that hopefully I can share with you for future shows.
Well,
superb. We'd be massively happy.
Well, I think I won't say too much at the moment, but there is things in motion that I think you will be hearing a lot more of Chris going down the future. Because, yeah.
No, if Nagash gets his hands on me, I'm pretty stuffed, to be honest. He might not want Vlad back.
If Nagash gets his hands on you, you've got to then take your hands off Necromunda.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I've got really big hands, which means I can hold a lot of hobby, people. A lot of hobby.
So, with all that being said, George, have you got anything you'd like to pimp out before we close up for the day?
Just the usual, really. You can find all my stuff over at www.strangeplaygrounds.com, and you can find lots of lovely videos over at the YouTube channel Exaggerated Elegy, and you can find me at the Twitter account Enigmatic Elegy.
Mr. Chris, have you anything you'd like to pimp?
I would like to pimp the Fluffenhammer right now. There are things in motion where you will see more from myself. Hopefully I can mention them in the future.
Yep.
But what I would like to comment on now is I have promised people a lot of things that I will stick up on the Fluffenhammer Facebook page and Instagram today, so I'm going to hook up with Adam, get all that stuff on. Please go over and check it out. If you know anyone who's involved in the hobby, Christ, get them onto the Fluffenhammer page. They will find
it's good fun. It's good fun.
It's a great community. Everyone's friendly. Everyone's lovely. And I have to say, it is a really non-toxic Facebook group for those of you out there who avoid joining these things because of little people niggling. It's not that. No. It's a great place. Everyone's positive.
It's a nice place. It's a nice, it's positive, it's constructive, it's fun. That's it, really.
Yeah, when you're joining it, you're joining a mini family. So yeah, that's what I'm pimping out. Get on there and check it out.
Well, thank you very much. As for myself, I'm not really going to pimp because you should know most of my stuff because it's all Fluffenhammer based at the moment. But yeah,
all hail the fluff god.
Become a fluffer.
Yeah, there's going to be a new one arising in the realm soon. The god of fluff.
Fluffamagus, the god of fluffing. God. Hashtag tits and tentacles. Anyhow, yes, so with all that being said, I'm going to finish up now with a little bit of a competition. So, the first person to go onto the Fluffenhammer Facebook group and write in anywhere at all, Shadespire is a lovely place to take a holiday because, and give me a reason why Shadespire is a lovely place to take a holiday, and you will get a audiobook. Well, it's a short audiobook, Shadespire-based audiobook sent to you. Go, do, and let's get some real... I want to know why people want to go to Shadespire on holiday. Give me your reasons. So with all that being said, let's get out of here. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you very much, people, and thanks to everyone for listening. Appreciate it.
And thank you very much, George.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, guys.
And thank you very much, you guys, for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oi.
There we go. And the audio.
Good boy loves young girls. Good boy is here to please you. Forgive me, Father, for what I'm about to do. I don't see you running away. Hold on to my horns. Old boy will figure it out. Tie me to your headboard. Old boy can make a bell ring in your stomach. Forgive me, Father, for what I'm about to do. That is my purple wand and my hairy sack of magic. Tie me to your headboard. I don't see you running away. Old boy loves young girls. Old boy will figure it out. Old boy is here to please you.